Hey folks, it's me, Justin, with Effective Remote Work. It's been a few months since I've gotten on here to chat about some things. It's been a while since I have even put out a video or a podcast or anything like that. And I figured it would be fun to hop on a live stream today and just talk a little bit about what I've been doing, where I'm at, and where I hope things to go for Effective Remote Work, the YouTube channel, and everything else that we're doing. Now, if you don't know, if you're just catching this randomly, I guess, if you don't know who I am or what we do here at Effective Remote Work, we've primarily talked about personal productivity. The YouTube channel here has largely been focused on the note-taking software Obsidian because that has been what has caught on, and it's something that I'm really passionate about, note-taking and learning of things of that sort. And so we've tried to create resources where things are helpful for people, but ultimately, my big vision for Effective Remote Work has always been to talk to people who are working remotely to help them live the life that they want to do. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that today. But first, if you're catching the live stream, please say hi in the chat. I would love to see you, chat with you, connect with your questions. Let me know where you're streaming in from. That would be fantastic. Be sure to like the video as well, too, if you're here. But I just wanted to start off talking. Hey, David, welcome to the chat. Thanks for joining. Hi, Riddick. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name there, but thanks, guys, for joining the chat. Just hanging around here today. Just wanted to talk a little bit about what Effective Remote Work is. I haven't really done much for content recently. Welcome from Brazil. And yeah, we wanted to just I wanted to just spend a little bit of time chatting about where I want to take things and what I see happening with Effective Remote Work. I've been inspired to kind of get back into doing some live streaming stuff. A friend of mine here in town, his name is Nicholas Jackson. He's got a YouTube channel called Tall Fox Studios where he does artwork. He's been doing some live streams of some pretty cool painting and that, a completely different niche than what I deal with, but seeing some of his live streaming stuff, I've really wanted to get back into doing it, so here we are today. Anyway, so to just be completely real about things, in July of this year, I completely quit making stuff for Effective Remote Work. The pandemic hit pretty hard, and a lot of the emotional weight of things that happened, I honestly just couldn't keep everything up. I had to change jobs as well as a full-time job. This is not my full-time thing. It's something I enjoy doing on the side. But in changing that job, there was a lot of extra stuff too that I was managing in that world of things. And so a culmination of things happened in the middle of this year where I really didn't have the energy to continue putting stuff out for people and really do it justice. So I put everything with Effective Remote Work on hold. Our podcast process, the YouTube channel here, our community at community.effectiveremotework.com, all the writing that I was doing, partnerships that I was working on building, things of that sort, our course, Obsidian Made Simple. I really had to just put the pause button on it because you've heard me talk about it potentially a little bit here on the podcast or on the YouTube channel, that health is super important. We can't just keep pushing and pushing and pushing when we're not doing well. We need to take time to rest. We need to find a healthy rhythm of things so that things can work. And I feel like I'm now finally at a point where I can start to think about Effective Remote Work and the people that I hope to serve with the content that we're producing here, the resources that we're creating. And so it's good to be back on the live stream. It's good to be back chatting with you all. Vincent, hi from Germany. Welcome. Thanks for joining. It's got to be getting a little late over there, so thanks for tuning in late. But yeah, I think we're at a really fun spot with Effective Remote Work. I've learned a lot over the last 6 months, especially about what taking care of myself looks like. In a world where we're working remotely, in a world where we are working digitally, really. If you've read Cal Newport's book, Deep Work, it's a title that is one of the essential productivity reads in my mind. And in the book, he talks about this concept, deep work, where we need to spend time focusing intently on work to get anything quality, anything that matters done. However, one of the challenges with deep work is that it's difficult to do more than about 4 hours in a day. The way our brains are wired is that it's hard to stay intently focused on something and to do any quality of work. There's a diminishing return on our efforts after about 4 hours when we're trying to work on something with deep, intense focus. And I've experienced that quite a bit because a lot of the work that I do requires deep, intense focus. I'm now doing marketing for a company that I worked for in the past, Discourse, if you're familiar with it. And I've had to spend a lot of time deeply learning and understanding things. And I've experienced this almost like this brick wall that I run into sometimes where I just if I push a little too hard or a little too far past that optimal point, then I feel the effects of that going forward. All of this to say is that I think I've found a rhythm that I can work with for effective remote work to be able to start creating some content again, to build some resources, but also a renewed passion for the people that I want to help with this, which is remote workers who are seeking to build the life that they're interested in living. And if you're not familiar with that, a lot of the life that gets promoted with remote work is you can just be a digital nomad. You can run around the world and travel to all sorts of different countries and work wherever you want to, not having to worry about when or where things are happening. It's just as long as the work is getting done, it doesn't matter where you are. That's not really the kind of remote work that I do. I have traveled out of the country maybe 3 times in the last 10 years. Oh, it does? Darn. Thanks for that. I'll fix the echo. Let me see if I can. Oh, geez, my desktop audio. Yeah, thanks. Should be gone now. I apologize about that. I think what I did, let me check OBS here real quick for something. That's kind of annoying. Yep, that's what happened. I forgot to turn monitoring off. I was trying to set levels on it. Sorry about that. That's kind of a rookie mistake. Anyway, hopefully that's better. Let me know in the chat. If it's not, I'll try to fix it again if it's not. Okay, so thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, back on that. So with remote work, the kind of remote work that I've done for the last 10 years has been, I live in a small town in the northern part of Minnesota. And it's just more the fact that I now have the capability to work for a company that I never would have had the ability to work for without moving to a big city. Hey, lots of people from Brazil today. That's awesome. Welcome to the live stream. So I get the opportunity to work remotely for a company I never would have had the opportunity to work for unless I had moved to a big city, somewhere like San Francisco or something like that. And I find that to be amazing. But with that, the company I work for too is also flexible in its scheduling. It's also a place where they value people. And having tasted this, I want other people to be able to experience this as well too, to be able to latch on to things that are meaningful in life to them, because life is not just all about work. In fact, one of the thoughts that I had recently about productivity is that a lot of times when we approach personal productivity, we talk about goal setting, we talk about completing projects and getting the work done. But there's this disconnect that often happens in the productivity world where we tend to think about mostly just ourselves. What can I get out of this? What can I do? How does this impact me? How can I get what I want out of this? And those aren't bad things in and of themselves, but when we're driven just by what we want, then we lose some of the bigger picture of what's important in life. Basically, that if our vision of what productivity and other tools and processes can help us with, in a lot of ways, we've lost sight of the bigger picture, which is really who we're impacting, who we're helping. The work that we do always has an impact on someone else. The things that we choose to take on in life always have an impact on someone else. And even taking care of ourselves has an impact on someone else because it affects the way that we do our work, but it also affects, like if we have a family, affects the way that we can relate with our family. I'll tell you one thing, in the last few months when I was dealing with burnout, in some regards, that I wasn't always the most pleasant person to be around because I was processing a lot of emotions and things like that. And that's just honest, real life. If you're worn out, like worn to the bone, basically, it's really, really hard to be a person that other people want to be around sometimes. We've got to take care of ourselves too. So anyway, I'm not really scripting anything with this. I'm just kind of trying to share from the heart where I want things to go. Hey, Mike Vardy, thanks for joining. He's saying if we do less and stuff better, then we help so many more people and ourselves in the process. Totally agree with you there, Mike. I appreciate all the resources and things that you're putting out into this space too. We do have to focus. We can't just cast a wide net and do as much stuff as we possibly can. Yeah, it's good to see you too. We can't do as much stuff as we possibly can, but we have to be almost ruthless in what we choose to say yes and no to in order to be most effective in our lives. Greg McKeown is another author. He wrote a book called Essentialism that talks largely about this subject. If we're too scattered across multiple different things, we're not doing the essential things, then what ultimately happens is that we just have no focus. There's that old proverb that says, a man who tries to catch 2 rabbits catches none. I probably butchered that, frankly, but that's the truth, though, too, is that if we're trying to go 2 different directions at one time, it's going to be very difficult to try to catch those goals, to chase those things. And so being as singular and focused as we possibly can is a good thing. I'll take a couple questions in a couple of minutes, so please pop them into the chat here if you have any. But the big picture of where I want to go with effective remote work is I really want to help people who are working remotely, people who are working from home, live the life that they want. Not in the sense of make $10,000 a month so that you can have the financial freedom to do all of this stuff, but to have the components of a life that is meaningful in the ways that are meaningful to you. And this includes productivity. This includes being mindful of the thoughts and creating helpful things for other people. This also includes being effective in the work that we do. But more broadly, this also includes our health. This includes the other areas of our lives that need attention, that we often put to the back burner because for the sake of achievement or whatever it is, we deprioritize those things. In the Eisenhower matrix, these would be the quadrant 2 things, the not urgent things, but the things that are important. Those are the things like exercise, the things that we don't necessarily see immediate results on. But if we take a long-term investment approach to these things, because a lot of these things are lifelong endeavors, building up financial health, building up personal, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health, things of that sort. Those are the things that will build lifelong returns for us, but they're usually the first things to go when we're caught in a state of frenzy and urgency. So anyway, I don't have a lot of concrete plans yet of what content looks like. I'm still feeling out the schedule of what that is. I'm probably going to start primarily over on the blog because writing is something I can handle a little bit more asynchronously. These live streams are great too because I can just hop on and we can talk about stuff. I love being able to do that and have conversations with you about productivity and remote work and all sorts of different things. So I'll hop over to the chat for some questions here. If you have any questions about what we've talked about today, or if you have any questions about anything you've seen on the channel or with productivity in general, please do pop them over into the chat. I'm happy to answer them or talk through any of them for you today. Maria has one over there. She says that I have a question about note-taking methods. Is Zettelkasten's system, in your opinion, the best method for taking notes, or can it be replaced by something adjusted to our own needs? She follows that up with, considering that discovered your channel because your video is about Obsidian, the app that allows us to use that system. Well, Zettelkasten is, I think, one really interesting and good approach towards taking notes. If you're not familiar with the Zettelkasten approach, it's the idea of taking information that you're consuming from resources. Literature can be books, movies even, podcasts, videos, courses, you name it. Whatever source you're learning from externally, your aim for taking that information is to condense it into the most atomic, smallest bit of information that you can. Nicholas Luhmann was the guy who created the Zettelkasten method, and he basically had boxes upon boxes of note cards that were organized in a very specific manner. And using these note cards, he was able to create works of literature in the sociology field that was unprecedented. The amount of work that he did was unprecedented for the day that he lived in. So the Zettelkasten system is a way that when you atomize this information, it allows you to see connections to it in ways that you wouldn't necessarily anticipate, because you can start to see how a small idea might be related to another idea. If you think about how atoms are actually put together, they're made of small particles, but then those atoms also fit together to make molecules, and those molecules make bigger substances, and so on and so forth, which makes up the entire universe. Information can be that way as well. So to answer the question, though, about Zettelkasten being the best method for taking notes, I'm going to answer this the same way that I would answer a question about, is getting things done the best system out there? And I would say it just depends on you. Some people work really well with the constraints that the Zettelkasten system sets in. They're really meticulous about details and splitting things out. Other people, that doesn't necessarily work well for them. And so I think there's a lot that we can learn from the Zettelkasten system. I love the idea of atomic notes and crafting other permanent notes out of them so that you can mix and mash ideas together. You can try to see connections between ideas that weren't necessarily related in the first place in your mind, but due to the fact that you've been exploring them in this way, you found that there is some relation to it. So just like any system that someone's sharing or that someone's created, there may be things that do work for us, or it might be something that doesn't work for us at all. I know for me, I cannot do a Zettelkasten system really at all. I do bits and pieces from it, but to try to stick to almost the legalistic ladder of what Zettelkasten is in its purest form, it's a little too rigid for me, and it's a little bit too difficult for me to navigate because it's just not the way that my brain works. Instead, I like to think of systems like this in a way that, if we can grab something that works for us when we try them out or to look at them, and then incorporate it into what works naturally for us, then I think that's great. So like in Obsidian, for me, a lot of what I have right now is centered around Readwise, because I've been using Readwise a lot. It's an excellent way to, I read a book on my Kindle, I'm taking notes on the Kindle, highlighting things, and then using Readwise, it syncs over to my Obsidian vault. But then from there, I can go back in and summarize that information or write a note that's connected off of something, start processing out ideas in different places. A lot of it is just what comes naturally and makes sense in the moment to me. I'm not a person personally who's driven by like rigid conventions or anything like that. I really need to I work more intuitively, let's put it that way, versus needing to have everything laid out. I work with what kind of flows naturally for me. And so I think hopefully this is answering your question, but basically if Zettelkasten is working for you, then it's the best system for you. And if there are parts of it that you really enjoy, but you want to look at experimenting and mashing those ideas up into other parts and another system for yourself, that's totally okay too. There's no right answer for how you do note taking or productivity or anything of that sort. It's all about kind of what works with the way that you think and what works with how you like to process, and then also revisit information. If you're finding that information is difficult to find in the future, then you probably want to rethink how you are handling that information. Maybe you need to restructure it in a way so that you can find it more easily in the future. Anyway, like I said, let me know in the chat if you have any follow-up questions on that, or if anybody else has questions relating to that subject. Note-taking is, I think, a really important thing for people to do in today's modern work age. One, because we have just an insane amount of information coming at us on a day-to-day basis, from emails and chat messages to YouTube, like we're watching right now, or even just the day-to-day interactions in the world through social media, text messages, and the like. We have so much information coming at us, and I, for one, am one who kind of gets bogged down with it sometimes. And my note-taking system is the place where I can just unpack all of that and then try to craft it or make it into something that makes sense to me. And not everything that goes into my note system is something that I'm going to craft into something later. Sometimes it's just a throwaway thought where it's like, I need to get this out of my head, and it kind of makes sense right now, but I'm not sure exactly where it fits. So I just need to write it down because I need to unload it. Because if I don't unload it, it's just going to sit there, and I'm not sure what to do with it. I'm very much an external processor in that way. I've got to get thoughts out of my head onto I guess a workspace is where the way you put it. I've heard it termed that a note-taking app or even a piece of paper can be almost an extension of your brain while you're working on it, to be able to process ideas. It allows, think of it like RAM in a computer. RAM is the place where your computer stores stuff that needs to be processed. Well, your note-taking app or even a piece of paper can be that for your brain, so that you can draw different conclusions from it or process that information, or even just let it sit. Sometimes if we write things down, we let them sit for a while and we return back to them. Our subconscious has done a lot of work on it, and we have new ideas to add to that we didn't necessarily think of to begin with. Anyway, that was a really long answer, but I hope that helped. I appreciate everybody joining in today too, from all over the world. It's so fun to be able to talk to everybody from different parts of the world, and it's something that I really thoroughly enjoy. And hopefully after the pandemic is done, or at least more under control, that we can all start to do more traveling again and experience each other's cultures. I love being able to learn, going to different places. So I just really appreciate the fact that I can learn from you all just as much as you might be learning from me here on this live stream too. So I'm going to wrap things up in just a couple minutes, so be sure to add more questions into the chat box. Just to wrap up here though, if you haven't checked out, we just put out a new website. It's not 100% finished yet. I'm still in the process of working on it, but it's at effectiveremotework.com. Again, we're aiming to serve the people who work from home and are looking to build habits and skills into their lives to help them live ultimately the life that they want, to be the person that they want, to be the best version of themselves in a lot of ways. And so if you have any questions about that, if you have any suggestions about that, head on over to effectiveremotework.com. We've got a contact box. You can fill that out. You can reach out to me directly that way. Hello at effectiveremotework.com too. If you have suggestions or anything that you want to talk about at all, definitely want to create resources that are directly helpful for you, things that you're wondering about, questions that you have as well. Well, I think that we're going to call it a wrap for today's live stream. Again, thank you everyone for joining. I really appreciate being able to hop on the live stream and chat with you all for a few minutes today. It's been a long time. I've enjoyed being able to do this again. I've always enjoyed these live streams in the past too. One thing that's changed about my setup in the last few months is that I've moved my main workstation over to a Windows computer. And so I've got to get used to setting up OBS on this and I've got an ultra wide monitor, and so I've got to figure out how do I stream from this without it looking wonky with aspect ratios and all of that, but we'll figure that out as we go. Anyway, my name is Justin with Effective Remote Work. If you enjoyed this live stream, be sure to just hit the like button below and subscribe to the channel if you're interested in catching more in the future. I think we'll probably be doing more live streams than pre-recorded videos just because I enjoy doing them a heck of a lot more because I get to interact with you directly. Anyway, have an excellent rest of your day wherever you're at. Thanks for joining, and we'll talk to you in the next one.